I'm going to take you through the background of the Community Health Management Information System project, but with a focus in refugee settlements and refugee settings. So the goal of the project that we have been able to deploy in Chapter 2 was to design and deploy an information system that supports community health management in refugee settings. We have done that in partnership with UNHCR, and the app that has been adopted is used to support village health teams to deliver services to their communities. And this project has been in partnership with UNHCR, MTI, AHA, AHA, Save the Children, as well as Oxfam. So how does Guild Digital get into the picture? We are the technical partners with Medic Mobile. So what Medic requires that for a partner must progress through particular development framework to support the CHT before they can be considered a technical partner. And Guild Digital has been able to progress through accreditation framework that has seen us support the CHT within the communities. So we have progressed with, and we are receiving the necessary support from Medic to be able to contribute to the CHT community. So what does that mean for Guild? Medic continues to provide Guild additional and flexible support through capacity building, but also matching us with other partners within the CHT community, especially those looking to add value in the CHT space. So we have been able to collaborate with Medic on a couple of activities. And if I can mention one being the user survey that we are going to present on, that was carried out among the first-line users of this app in the Chapter 2 settlement. And the other is we are able to provide feedback to Medic and on feature testing, as well as showcasing on communities, especially feature testing within in terms of the Community Health Management Information System app. So where are we now? We are currently deployed in Chaka under partnership with UNHCR, and also under perhaps a pipeline negotiation to have us deploy in the other 13 refugee settlements. So hopefully before the end of the month, we'll anticipate that our presence will be in a new location for us to be able to carry or further increase the CHT community. So with that, with our new location, we hope that will help us enroll really big numbers on the community health app.
We collaborated with Guild Digital to conduct a moderated survey. Moderated survey in the sense that the survey was had a facilitator. So Fatiha and Guild Digital staff, they sat with the VHTs, and they had a questionnaire that they were asking them questions, and they would fill in for them because based on the kind of the setup that the VHTs operating, it wasn't possible for us to just send the questionnaire and have them fill it by themselves. So 20 VHTs were involved, and out of the 13 that we surveyed, they had used, sorry, out of the 27, 13 that we surveyed had used the app for less than a month, and 8 had used the app for 6 months. So we wanted to test or to hear about usability of the application. So we asked them on some, we asked them about functionalities in the app, especially about how easy or difficult it was to use those functionalities or features. And majority of them found most of these sections very easy to use. Like we can see from the graph here, some of the things that we tackled were registering new households. We wanted to hear also their experience on adding new household members. Also, if they are able to search or to find a household member within the app. Also editing household members and deleting household members. Also completing their tasks and also syncing data. So most of them, of course, when it came to household registration, most of them termed it as easy. And then we had two of the participants. They thought that editing household members or registering new households was difficult. Also notable was a group of 6 participants who felt that deleting a household member was difficult. But if you read the whole report, where we'll be directed after this presentation, you see that in this project with Guild Digital Health, they don't have the VHTs are not able to see the delete feature. So probably when we'll be talking to them in details, especially because we are planning to do interviews later on, would like to hear why these 6 participants thought deleting household members is difficult, and yet they don't have access to the feature. We also thought of we also sought to look to gauge usefulness of the application. So here we were trying to see the extent. We were trying to ask the extent to which that the VHTs felt that the app met their needs, and most of them felt that their needs were met to a great extent, as we can see from this pie chart. So mostly it's because most of them because we know the whole application, it's made up of the core framework and features, and we also have the workflows inside there. So a matter of trying to see the features and the workflow, whether they meet their needs. So we also had other findings. We had, we also tried to find out how intuitive or findable the app was. So some of the things here we were trying to ask included, just a minute, just trying to ask the VHTs the extent to which they agreed or disagreed that things were easy to do on the app. So this included knowing which tasks to complete first, being able to identify priority tasks, whether they thought seeing their targets was useful, and also being able to find a household that they were looking for. So most of them, from the ratings that we got, they found that the app was, we found out they described that the app was easy, was intuitive and findable. And then we had another team of, another group of questions that we are trying to look at, which was about their frequency of support by either their supervisor or project administrators. So more than half of the participants, they responded that they regularly request for support from their supervisor or project administrator. But this can be backed up by the information or the finding on the findings we had, in that more than half of the respondents had just started using the app, had used the app for less than a month, which is expected. So that could have been attributed, the findings on this question could have been attributed to that. And then 12 out of 27 participants, they still use paper tools alongside the app, which again, it's attributed to that. Most of them are new to the app, and so they are still using both registers or hard copies plus the app.
As regards our next steps at Guild Digital, we feel like we have come a long way with MEDIC, and the completion of the VHT user survey was one of those activities that we have concluded well, and our next steps involve conducting what MEDIC has called the generative interviews. Here we seek to enter the mind of the users, to discover new information about them, what motivates them, what are their ambitions, what do they look forward to in the scope of their work while they apply this tool. So we hope to complete that with time. Anthony will be able to communicate the time frame for that. Regarding our just concluded activity, the user survey report can be found here. I don't know whether I'm supposed to share this link, Anthony, because it's already in the chat for those who want to see it. Here we detailed how we conducted this activity, how many people were involved. There's some nice images so that you can see the Guild team in the field concluding these activities. I don't know, is this a question? But Anthony, we are first of all very pleased to have been able to collaborate with you on this activity. We just have a few things. I don't know whether this is the appropriate space, because you had said you seem to imply that people should ask questions, not us. So I'm not so sure I'm supposed to be asking in this moment.
Yeah, you can ask 1 or 2 questions before you move to the next agenda item.
Okay, well, here goes. We have benefited a lot from that capacity building, and as you have seen in the slide, we see that our numbers may seem to be growing. So, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go on.
Oh, yes. As far as progressing further on this pathway for the accreditation, we are first of all thankful for the support you have given us, and we're still eager to participate in these activities. And because of the way the landscape looks, and given our interactions, we realize that our numbers as we deploy are growing, and they may even grow further. So we are wondering how much, how flexible it can get, because we're seeing internally, we're identifying more needs that may require some more capacity building or technical sort of support for MEDIC to point us into the right directions. For example, with these growing numbers and with the landscape, the multi-partner landscape in the settlements, there are so many people who are asking for many new features. Isn't it, would it be right for us to maybe request for more capacity building around our site reliability engineering, and even with the app itself and the dashboard? Like, what does that look like as we go further? So I'm not sure this is a question. This seems more for me like an interaction that where would require MEDIC to respond or to give us a sense of what that might be. But we would really like to get some more of that capacity building with our site reliability engineering, and even with the app, because people are asking for new features. And in as much as we have pulled off so many things, we envision that there's going to be a time when we might find some strange request. So what is Medic's position on that?
All right, thanks, David, for those questions. So for the capacity building, we are working on optimizing our documentation sites so that it might be easier for more community members and partners to be able to capacity build themselves using the self-learning approach. But we can be able also to have a separate discussion on how our team can be able to support you in regards to that. For the new features, I think we can be able to gather more requirements on what you need, and we'll be able to agree if they can be able to be included in our roadmap. For the number of users, I think we have a presentation on 4.0, which might be able to respond to some of your questions. I think that's fine. For further follow-up discussion, I think we can have a separate discussion with your team just to agree on the way forward. I hope that's fine for now, David.
Okay, that's fine for now, Anthony. Thank you.
All right.
We're going to go through a number of different topics, starting with the allies team. So in last quarter, Q3, we had a big focus on user management at scale, which include a lot of documentation updates. We released the bulk management, the bulk user upload feature, and we're still yet to release the offline user replace, which has been featured here. For this upcoming quarter, we're going to be working on planning around scaling and app changes, which includes being able to predict what's going to happen when you implement some purging changes, and as well as measuring CHT 3 to 4 upgrade metrics to make sure you can plan your upgrade accordingly. I did want to note that the offline user replace was maybe going to make it into 4.0, but it needed to, get into 3.17. But because 4.0 is now locked down for features only relating to the architecture upgrade and the Enketo upgrade and the existing features, going to be delayed till 4.1. It's still available in the feature release if you'd like to see it. We're going to talk about some releases now, specifically 3.17, which was released earlier this week. There's 4 items I'm going to cover, and then there's a number more that are listed in the release notes on our documentation site. The first item I wanted to cover is action buttons. We had a lot of reports of deployments going into Android settings and like decreasing the screen resolution settings to get this text to show so that CHWs would know what the button was they were pressing. So we made the label along the bottom there show more often, the text label, so that it was more clear. The care teams has worked extensively on updating search and filters, and Michael, who's not here today, has talked about this on this call quite a bit, and I just wanted to touch on it briefly, that the way the search works and the way filter works is changed in 3.17, and you can also delay this change by a permission, which again is covered in the release notes. Also coming from the care teams, breadcrumb improvements have been made. Right here we see tasks that were changed to have more context so that the CHW can know which family and which area the task is applicable to. But this also applies to the left-hand side for messages and reports, specifically no longer displaying the level of where the CHW is themselves, so more applicable data is shown. Last feature that I wanted to highlight in 3.17 is that the privacy policy is now public on the login page. We had some issues around the Google Play Store needing to see the privacy policy and needing a login, and this became a sticking issue. So we've just surfaced it up on the login page. So now anonymous users can see the privacy policy without needing to log in. We're going to get into 4.0 here. This obviously is not a release just yet, but it's the release that we're working on. And then we're going to cover a demo on the next section. So important to note that 4.0 has been merged to master, and a little odd thing to say because normally master is just this ever-growing current state, and then we cut a branch, for example, for 317. But in this case, the core engineering team and the SRE team and QA has been mixed up in there too, has been working on this for quite some time in a separate branch, and it was really hard to maintain disparate code bases. So we've taken the plunge and merged it to master, which means that everything now is focused on getting 4.0 out, and that everything else is being kind of pushed aside. So you may have noticed a few things that were not accurate or a little broken in the documentation, and we're trying to fix that as much as possible. Also released is the 4.0 prep guide, which I'm going to cover a bit more here. And then finally, there's been a demonstration video, which actually I'll do another demonstration of seeing 4.0 run natively in Docker, or Docker native, as we say. I'll get more into that in the next slide. So the 4.0 prep guide covers 3 major areas, and we tried to approach it from a very tactical and actionable approach. We're expecting partners to look at this and to figure out what are the steps they need to do to upgrade. So in this screenshot, you can see in the background, there's a SQL query. This would be run against your database where couch to PG, pulling over the information. And it's going to show you in a table how many users are running outdated versions of Android. CHT 4.0 requires Android 1.0 or later. And this can be a very laborious upgrade because you may need to work with however many CHWs have outdated versions. So it's really important that you know how many there are, and you can quantify that based off of who is synchronized, and then seeing that synchronized data pull from CHT, from Couch, into Postgres and visualize it here. Another important part of preparing to upgrade is that you're running the latest version of CHT Comp. CHT Comp has been extended to check your forms to make sure that they're going to work well with 4.0. And this is an easy upgrade so that as you're testing, you can be alerted to changes you might need to make to your forms. So the other big change for 4.0 is that Enketo has been updated to the latest version. And we have gone through very, very extensive details as to what those changes are. Just about all of these changes are compatible with 3.0 and 4.0, such that if you have a form that needs to be updated for 4.0, in most cases, you can deploy a 4.0 compatible form to your 3x instance. This will mean that you're ready to upgrade, and it will be a lot easier. To enable this testing, we have documented how to run a special 3x branch that has the Enketo uplift. This is going to be a lot easier than running the 4.0 branch, which is very much an alpha. We'll get to that next. And is done in a familiar way that you've done before, using Medic OS and using Docker Compose, or using the CHT Docker helper if you're running that. So the guide has covered both the very detailed differences that Enketo has, and also a very detailed way to test these changes in a 3x environment without needing to upgrade to 4.0. I want to pause here and see if anyone has any questions about the requirement to be on Android 1.0 or later, the requirement to upgrade to CHT Conf, and the requirement to test your forms so that they're compatible with the version of Enketo in 4.0. All right. Seeing no questions in the chat, but if anyone has any, please feel free to drop them in the chat or to come off mute. I'm happy to answer them as best I can. Okay, great. So I'm going to now give a demo, and it's going to be done in 3 parts. The first part, we're going to go over how you run CHT and Docker Compose for a 3x environment. Remember, this is done in MedicOS, which is a monolithic Docker image. So it has a CHT API and Sentinel, not HA proxy. HA proxy is running something else. It has Couch all in this big container. And in 4.0, we introduce a Docker native approach, which means that each service gets its own container. And this has a lot of benefits, which we will get into a little bit, but it paves the way for the modern architecture that 4.0 introduces, mainly the ability to scale out horizontally so that you can go from a single CouchDB node to a cluster that has multiple nodes and brings the large performance gains that we're seeing in 4.0. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Great. So here's my test instance, which is currently down, so it's not connected. And here's my command line here. So I just want to start off with what you're seeing on my screen. So this is a command line. And if we run this watch command, you can see all the Docker instances that are being run on my computer here. So if I run this little container called delete me, you'll see the delete me show up and show which image it's running. So first, let's start off with the CHT 3x compose file. It's worth taking a peek in here. Since 4.0 has been released, I mentioned that we've made some changes on the documentation site, and as well that CHT 4.0 has been merged to master. So when you go to master now on GitHub, that branch no longer has the 3x Docker compose file. Instead, you need to go into the scripts directory to download it. Don't worry about that. We've updated the documentation so that when you're going through, for example, the local setup or the developer setup for running app development, the curl commands now correctly download this file. And this file very clearly calls out that it's now for 3x only. We offer more information about that here. And it hosts the single monolithic container MedicOS. And then we have HA proxy, which allows us to run a continuous audit of everything. When you run this, it looks like this, where you have your Docker compose command, and it's going to bring up two containers. We see there's the MedicOS container and the HA proxy container. These right now are being hosted in Docker Hub, so they look like this. And when you look in a browser, we have a self-signed certificate, which once we accept, we can log into, need to clear my cookies there because of the refresh there. We can log in just as we would normally, and we'll see that we're running the 3.9 version. That may be a little surprising to those who are seeing this for the first time, but MedicOS was stuck in time at 3.9 and expected you to upgrade to whatever 3x version you wanted to test with. So that's the 3x world, but let's go look at the 4x world. So we can go back to the command line. We'll cancel out of Docker and my containers all stop. And we'll look at running something close to what a developer might run. It's important to note that this is alpha. 4.0 should not be run in production, but we are making it available for those that are interested to see how it works. So everything you're seeing right now about how 4.0 is going to run may change over time, but we're getting very close to things being more stable. So for 3x, you specify the couch password and the user. And then here we're going to specify the 4.0 couch compose file and the 4.0 core compose file. And actually, before we run it, let's go ahead and take a peek at the core file because it differs pretty dramatically from the 3x file. So right away, we can see we have many more services, and there's a service for each container that we want to run. So we have one for HA proxy, the health check, which makes sure when you run a couch node that they're all working together. We have the CHT API and CHT Sentinel, and then Nginx. And these all work in concert through the network and through the storage volumes to spin up the 4.0 instance. And let's look at what that looks like. So you can see that each of the services is coming up here. And as well, these are being downloaded from the public AWS container repository that Medic's using to publish the images. These images get updated for every branch right now that we're working on as we finalize 4.0, and they will continue to be updated as releases are made. When you go and look at this in the browser, it's going to look the same because remember, API isn't changing between 3x and 4.0 such that the UI will be the same and the experience for CHWs will be the same. So if I go ahead and log in here, you can see that I'm running the 4.0 alpha. Right now, we're seeing 3x upgrades here. When 4x is released, and then when 4.0 comes out, sorry, when 4.1 comes out, you'll be able to continue to use this easy-to-use upgrade process through an external CHT upgrader service that will be another Docker container that runs and speaks to the CHT API using Docker to upgrade the service in place. And I want to check one last thing, which is that we can actually run a more production environment as well using Docker. And that's going to be the multi-node setup with Couch. And this is not what developers would normally run, but because 4.0 is under active development, we're all doing all the testing to make sure everything is working as smooth as possible. And I think it's important to show that Docker and Kubernetes for production for Meta-hosted deployments is working in this horizontally scalable way. So here you can see we still have the CouchDB password and as well the CouchDB user, but we've added the CouchDB servers. And this declares this cluster so that HA proxy can load balance between the different clusters and show a single instance to the API that's making queries. So now we run the same command as far as Docker Compose up, and we can see that we now have 3 CouchDB instances. And when we go to the browser, again, it's not going to look any different because we're still just running the exact same API, but now you can see that this is the 4.0 alpha version running in a more production-like area with, again, that horizontal scalability. So this was a whole lot of technical presentation, and it is not, again, ready for public use in any production way, but it does allow you to see what we're up to and to try it out. I did want to note that currently we don't have an upgrade path for the alpha release to go from a 3x data set on your development instance to a 4x data set. Of course, for production, we'll have a very easy migration path for that upgrade, but for the alpha release for our developers, there's currently no way to do that. Okay, that's all that's done for the demonstration. If anyone's interested, here's all the commands that I used to run the demo. So this will be posted to the forums for anyone who wants to follow along after the fact. As well, on the prior slide, there was a forum link where I did a very similar video doing a demonstration of how all this works, if anyone wants to have some discussion about that.